it's really funny because coaches think the punishments are the only tool, but really there's a lot of other tools we can have in our toolbox as coaches. And one of my favorite ones is just an athlete-led timeout, where if there's something going wrong in practice, I just say to the players, take 30 seconds in your teams, and I want you to have one specific solution leaving this timeout, which you're going to tell me. And what we're doing there is we're letting the players have a level of autonomy. And this kind of links into self-determination theory, which is some more research behind why this is important. And I think at the end of the day, whenever we make a player run, it's a lot of times players run so much in a practice that it's increasing injuries and it's not conducive for performance. And B, they need every single minute, every second in a practice, solving problems and actually taking part in activities which are going to be representative of basketball. And every time you're running or doing suicide, it's excessive push-ups, that doesn't happen. I think the big thing is, Justin, in my practice is, because we keep score in every single-sided game, just having a winner and a loser is enough, because the players learn to love competing, and losing is the feedback. They don't need to run for losing or making a mistake. And even things like a player giving a lack of effort, well, it's why is the player giving a lack of effort? As humans, we're not inherently more bad. And I like this idea of positive framing, seeing the best in every player. So I might just pull the player aside and just say, hey, what's going on today? I've noticed that something doesn't feel right. And that would be a transformational approach. We're looking to assume the best in everyone instead of thinking that punishments solve problems, which they don't.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I definitely have adopted similar aspects to really giving that ownership back to the players. And because they are going to be problem solvers when they finish playing basketball, right? So I named my basketball program Beyond the Game Basketball, so we can help them be successful beyond the game. My I guess quick question would be, like, if players are late to your programming, how do you help them solve the problem of being on time?
Absolutely. So I think, my old school self would have been, you're going to do push-ups or this. But then it's like, especially, with some of the work I've done in London, the constraints that they have, often it's a parental issue, which they can't control. Maybe their parents coming back from work late, or maybe they're coming from an hour and a half away to get to practice. So I'll take the positive framing approach, and I'll just speak to them after the practice. And instead of me immediately seeing them and saying, you're late, why are you late? I would say, Justin, it's so good to see you. So straight away, it's the complete opposite to starting practice on a negative note. And then if I've noticed it's something that's happened a couple of times, I like to say at the end of practice, look, Justin, every minute, it's so good having you here in the practice. Every minute here, you're getting better. And, I think if you're not missing the first 10, 15 minutes, it's going to be way more conducive to you and your development. What can we do to work together so that you're here on time? And just asking that question changes everything. Now, obviously, if you're in a pro team or college, it's different. You're going to have a different system. There are some clear team standards, things that, you want to implement. But I think especially at the youth level, it's a completely different context, and it's often the parents. It's not the kids.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And with that, I know one thing that really has helped, with me being and having high standards is recognizing players that are giving that extra effort and like praising those players, because that's a way of, hey, this person, not that they're not, the others are not a part of the culture, but this is our standard, right? So just giving them that continued praise. Is there anything else that you could continue to elaborate on?
Yeah. Absolutely. You just made me think, and like, practice for me is so purposeful from the start that players want to be there. And what I see a lot in the traditional approach is the first 20, 30, 45 minutes of a practice is simply wasted time. Players do like ridiculous warm-ups, drills. Sometimes they go a whole practice without playing and they get to 5 and 5 at the end. And instead, from the very moment we start with the warm-up, we are playing basketball. We might, after a tag game at the beginning, we might go straight to 5-on-5. And very quickly, the players learn that we as the coaches are valuing their time. We're not wasting their time. They know that every minute of a practice is intentional. It's different. And that really changes. They start coming to practice early because they value what we are bringing to the table as coaches.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, because,
Yeah.
traditionally it's like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to stretch, we're going to do layup lines, we're going to do the 3-man weave or whatever we end up doing, right? That they feel like, you know, isn't, I guess, is engaging. I've kind of started doing the passing tag and, different things to kind of get them to have like a culture of joy. And I think that's one thing that I really want there to be a part of, BTG basketball and the high school teams that I coach is I want them to, after a long day of school and they got chores and they have family stuff going on, I want them basketball to be a source of joy for them.
I love that, Justin. You know the phrase I say, make practice the best part of their day. And any coach I work with, I always say that to them. And that's more important. Now, naturally, it comes hand in hand with using the CLA because it's more enjoyable when drills for the kids. But if you really have that goal to make practice the best part of the day, it changes how you coach. And that's, to me, what a good coach is. They're a transformational leader who, regardless of if kids, not many kids are going to end up playing professionally. It's like 0.2% of all players in youth programs. So if we know that as coaches, we've got to stop treating the kids like they're mini adults, because they're not. And we got to create experiences for them, which they're going to remember their whole lives. And experiences that will make them want to always remain involved in basketball. And unfortunately, that's why I called it Transforming Basketball, based on transformational leadership. And we've got to get coaches seeing the value in this, because the more coaches understand that and the importance of it, the more we will see coaching behaviors in the basketball world change. And, just go on the Instagram page, like you said, look at that post we did punishing players. And, all the comments you see there, it's actually depressing to think that these adults are working with kids. And that's what I am on a crusade to change with everything I'm doing in the basketball space.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense to me. And I'm glad that, you had the time in your busy schedule to be able to come on and share your wisdom with the Bridging Impact community and myself, because selfishly, I learned so much on this podcast, as I'm sure you do on your podcast, and inviting people in and just learning and continue to be open-minded. I think that's one thing that I'm trying to teach my players. And I heard this great saying about a month ago, and it's probably way older than a month, but character is better caught than taught. And so I just really recognize that as a role model and as a transformational coach, that's something I have to live and breathe every single day. So I really appreciate our conversation.